I am very sincere when I say I wish the team and all those involved that to make Friends Church work, they could hear the stories and they could witness the impact that the message of Friends Church and the workings of this place is having in the lives of people, whether within this community or beyond. It's an amazing thing. It's my first time back in a little bit. I've been thankful. Vince has given me some space to be able to work with our Project Mexico team. We haven't said much about it, but in about a month, we're going to be taking a team of about 20 people down over spring break to build a big home for a couple families that are going to live within the home. They're obviously related, but we're so thrilled and excited to be able to go down and change the life of a family. And the ironic thing is that family's going to change our lives. We always think we're going down to, help them so much, but man, you can't go down there without it changing you. And so we're thrilled about that. But there's so many people that have played a part in making that happen. People that are donating money and involved in our WestJet ticket raffles and 50/50s and sponsoring different members of the team that are going down. We just want to say thank you, but this is making a difference. The Friends Church and the spiritual journey is about not just what can you make my life better with. It's about looking beyond and giving back to our world and leading to a better place in our world. And so anyways, I want to thank you. I thank all of you for the way that you contribute to doing that very thing, because it is truly making a difference. In fact, that's where I want to start this morning. It was about 18 years ago that my oldest son went on his first house building mission down to Mexico with Friends Church, one of these teams. He was in grade 9. I think he was 14 years old. And he was our oldest kid. We'd never sent off a kid on a trip of that nature before. A little bit nerve-wracking for it. But I got to tell you, Jaden, and he knows it, and we've had lots of laughs about it, but man, he was a strong-willed kid. If I said do this, he was doing the opposite. He was just wired up. Kathy always got mad at me because it was all reverse psychology on my end. I'd say, don't do that. He would go do it. So I'd use that very strategically. So when he told us he wanted to go down to Mexico, I was like, whoa, you want to go on the team? He's like, yeah, I really like to. He comes back from the team and he's like, Dad, that was the most impacting thing I've ever done. And I remember as a parent just going, you're talking weird, kid. And I'm looking at Kathy, and we both are leaning in going, what was so great about it? Tell us the truth. And I'm thinking, you know what? Big group of kids. Maybe he met a girl. You have all these, I think they stopped in California. I bet that was a lot of fun. So I'm asking him, like, why was it so great? And he said, it was this key ceremony, Dad. And I'm like, key ceremony? What's that about? He said, after we finished the project, we built these homes. He said, it was on our day that we were ready to leave. He said, the family that we built the home for, they came. And they'd been there on the job site helping all along, but he says, we all gathered around them and we presented them the keys to the home. Yeah. He said, Dad, the mom, she hardly said a word all week. But through a translator, she began telling us about the struggles that they had had as a family. All that they had done to travel to that point. And she described the home that they once had and the living conditions and the struggles of her husband finding work. And she said, I have for years prayed to God, saying, God, will you help us just get to a place where we're safe, we're stable, we have this place. So Jaden's telling this story, and he said, sorry. He said, the mom just began to sob. She said, you You are God's answers to our prayer. Jaden couldn't tell the story without crying. My hard-nosed, strong-willed kid is sitting there. He can't even control his emotion. He said, Dad, it was so impacting to see what we had done for that family and to see the mom talking this way. And she came up and gave me this big hug. He said, it was incredible. He said, I'm telling you, I'm doing this again. I'm doing it again. You know what? And here's the truth. This year, Jaden's leading the construction side of the trip. This will be his 14th trip that he's done of this nature. I'm not talking about a little buzz that he got. I'm telling you, that moment was so supercharged. You saw the impact. He felt the it was just like, he said, I believe in this. Man, it was a proud moment as a parent, man. But impact, like Kathy and I are looking at each other going, I don't recognize our kid. Something has changed in him. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt the focus of someone's gratitude on you? Where they looked you in the eye and said, I need to thank you for what you did. That meant something to me. And it could be just, it's not always just a big thing. Maybe you just shoveled the neighbor's sidewalk and they came out one day and they said, hey, I saw that. I noticed what you did there. Thank you. That was really nice. I know how cold it was. Oh, it's no biggie. But it felt nice. These moments of gratitude. I was in a Safeway line waiting to pay for my groceries. This was a while back. And there's this young mom, kid on the cart, paying for her groceries. And I'm kind of impatient. I only had a few things. I'm kind of looking back, already regretting the line I got in because this was taking longer and wondering if I should jump lines. But I noticed at one point, before it was too late, she recognized she didn't have enough money to pay for all the stuff that she had on the line. And quickly and discreetly, she was trying to pull stuff out of the thing. Just one of those moments that just grips you quickly. You're just like, and everything was happening really quietly. The cashier was trying to do this subtly. It's taking a little bit longer. And then I watched the woman behind her, older woman. She quickly pulled her debit card out and swung out. She said, we'll pay for this with debit. She grabbed the cash, pushed it at this young mom, and tapped the machine. That mom, she's like, she just grabbed her head and pulled it into her chest and said, it's all good. Get out of here. In a moment, I'm just like, Sometimes it can happen in the most spontaneous places, little things you do, and all of a sudden the gratitude turns and and there's this exchange that is hard to explain. Power flows into that moment. Just watching it, I was electrified. Felt these moments? Read the other day of there's a woman in our community who rallied a bunch of support for a school down in Africa. And the school sent back, on behalf of Friends Church, over $30,000 was sent down to feed kids who are struggling to eat, and it's affecting their school and their education. They're skipping class, whatever. The money goes down. They sent back a letter talking about the impact that it's having on these kids. They're showing up every day knowing there's food waiting for them there, and it's impacting their grades. It's impacting everything. You read that, you just go, oh, this school is just saying thank you for making a difference in these lives. This morning, this is what we want to talk about, is gratitude, how it's connected to a life of prayer. I want to show you how this works. Over the last weeks, if you've been joining us, we've been talking about prayer, not in a typical fashion. A chunk of the content that we've been focused on has been focused on the complexities that our common understandings of prayer has created, especially when you hold a very particular conception of God. You know, there's this common belief that prayer really is just simply asking for this God out there, this conception of God out there to come and to intervene in our everyday lives and do some kind of miraculous thing on our behalf. Prayer is often seen as that exchange. Help, do this, please, whatever. Though some of our ancestors seem to conceive of God in that way, and they believed that God worked that way, and even to this day, there are many that experience God in that way and use prayer in that way. And for many, it seems to be working well for them. But there are many for whom this understanding of prayer has led to all kinds of complications, problematic conclusions. You know, you pray, and especially in situations where you're like, come on. If you're here last week and you heard Jerry's story, perhaps in your own life you've watched situations where you're like, God, come on, please. Of all times, this is it. And then it doesn't happen. I've watched people wrestle with going, man, maybe I didn't pray the right way. Maybe I said the wrong things. Maybe I'm not believing strong enough. Or maybe we didn't have enough people all rallied around to pray for this person. Maybe I've got some kind of bad stuff in my life and God's pissed off at me. I've heard all kinds of people give all kinds of reasons why prayer, in their understanding of it, didn't work. Over the past few weeks, we've been exploring what prayer could feel like, what it could look like if perhaps we set that conception of God aside and looked at it through some other lenses. Probably you're sick of hearing a couple of the stories that we've relayed back and forth. I talked about the problem that I had at a time in my marriage early on with Kath. She felt like we couldn't go on. And I'm praying to God saying, you got to heal my marriage. I need a miracle right now because my wife, I'm not sure if she's going to call this quits or what. I mean, I remember being desperate. And my expectation of how that prayer would get answered and what actually happened looked different. It wasn't some miracle. And now in hindsight, I look back, I stumbled across some learning. And as I was reading this book, I started experiencing these, I call them epiphanies, these moments of awakening about myself and what I was doing that was contributing to the problems. And it didn't happen magically. It didn't happen even quick. It happened over a long period of time, but slowly change started happening that allowed healing to come to my marriage. When I look back at that and I go, well, was that some kind of supernatural thing, or did I kind of answer my own prayer? Did that learning kind of play a part to the actions that I took to kind of bringing about this earnest hope and dream that I had for my marriage? We started asking the question, could that all be part and parcel of a life of prayer? When someone sees someone in need, rather than just praying and believing, a woman says, I think we could help a bunch of kids over in Africa by raising some money and sending some money to them. Rather than saying, God, provide a miracle and feed those kids. She says, maybe we could just rally some money and send it over there. And by doing so, change the lives and the world of a bunch of children. Are the actions that we take when we see a need that we know if we were to solve it, it could lead to something better and more beautiful for someone? Are those actions a part, playing a function of a bigger, wider definition of prayer? This is what we've been asking. You see, if your conception of God no longer requires or expects some kind of supernatural intervention, where it's like we're sitting back waiting for something out there, the universe, to do something magically. If we set that aside and say, maybe this has more of a responsibility with us. Maybe we and what we're doing is kind of part of the bigger plan and purpose. Prayer becomes kind of this beautiful dance between me and what I think maybe my responsibilities are, and the divine and others and the world around me. It becomes bigger and wider than just a Hail Mary that says, throw me a bone, God. Do you see that? As our concept of prayer morphs into a wider definition, this is what I found. We become more invested, more responsible for the better world that we're praying for. The role, and when this happens, and you begin to engage in it in a bit of a different way, the role and the impact of gratitude can't help but bleed into the conversation. You know what I'm talking about, this genuine, heartfelt exchange of thanksgiving towards those who are acting on the behalf of others. If you've experienced even a little bit of this, you know that these prayers of gratitude that you can offer up to even others can become very spiritual experiences. There was no denying that my son experienced something spiritual in that moment when that key ceremony went down. Something spiritual changed him. And I think it still inspires him to this day. He's got tattoos on his body representing families and organizations that we've helped down in Mexico. He's got a big bucket of water to remind him that he's all about taking water. I'm telling you, it marked him, literally. Heartfelt gratitude can have a way of supercharging our lives and bringing joy in immeasurable ways. Not just to us, but to others. But growing up in the spiritual tradition that I came from, this wasn't something that we talked about often. Gratitude in a very spiritual sense was something that was supposed to be directed heavenward. I mean, if it's God that's ultimately performing the good in our world, I was always taught that every good and perfect thing that we experience in this world comes from above. So we give God praise and thanksgiving and gratitude for the good that we experience here. And that was what we talked about lots. We said, man, we need to make even worship services like this all about kind of directing our gratitude heavenward. One psalm says, go through his open gates with great thanksgiving, enter his courts, God's courts, with praise. Give thanks to him and bless his name. Gratitude was so often expressed and talked about as kind of this vertical expression. Whenever something goes well in your life, you thank God because he was responsible for it, ultimately. Remember one time my dad, he had worked in this business that he owned almost his whole life. One day a guy came in and said, I want to buy your business. And it caught Dad off guard. He wasn't thinking about selling. And he says, you name your price. Dad went away. He said he came up with this figure that he thought there's no way. Because he wasn't fully ready to retire. But he came up with this image, this figure, came in, met with the guy. He said, here's what I want. The guy says, deal. And Dad went. And I remember Dad calling me saying, I sold. And I went, wait, what? What do you mean? So anyways, he tells me everything, and I'm like going, congrats, Dad. You must be so proud of you. He's like, no, it was all God. I go, okay. And I didn't say it, but I'm like, so you work a night and day over the last 30 years, had nothing to do with it. You putting in all those hours, that wasn't even part of the... No, it's all God. It's nothing about me, Jeff. That's that conception in motion. I'm not criticizing that. But when we talk about the different ways gratitude can be expressed and the power of it, I think there's more to it. There's more to this than just that vertical thing. And even if you're here today and you're going, man, I'm not even sure what to do with what even exists out there, I got to tell you something. Prayer and the prayer of gratitude still is relevant to your life, and I want to show you that. It becomes relevant when you begin to realize that in all the different interactions that you will experience on a day-to-day basis with others. It's a shoveling on the street, a little money you hand to someone in need, a Tim Hortons card you pass out, these exchanges where all of a sudden someone's looking, going, oh, thank you. When you begin to see all these interactions in a way as divine, spiritual interactions and expressions, something begins to shift. When you're able to just stop and notice the beauty and the love in the world that's going on around you, just noticing. A while back, I don't know, that might have been a couple years ago, I showed a TED Talk on a Sunday morning, a guy named Louis Schwartzberg. I don't know if you remember, if any of you were around for this, but this guy is a time-lapse photographer. He goes out in nature and he shoots unbelievable nature photography. Like a little plant that all of a sudden, just over time, just begins to explode into this beautiful creation. Clouds, formations as they pass, come and go. What he creates and the whole purpose behind it, he says, if we could just stop and notice the beauty around us, the impact of it, the expression of gratitude for the simple things in life that are going on. You know, we fixate on the brokenness, but man, he says, if you could open your eyes to see something bigger and wider that's happening all around you, the simplicity of it. He said, this day is a gift. He said, just think about the brain, the human brain that exists within you and the electrical impulses that are synapsing and charging, firing, that allow you to be able to see the world, smell, taste, hear. How often do you just allow that, just the miracle of that, to fire you up? Just to watch the sky and the designs that it's making, the sunsets that will never, one will never be the same as the next. The weather, unique, good and bad, from minus 31, 37 with the wind chill to literally 1 degree the next morning that we experienced this last week. I know how much energy it takes to warm up my car in a frickin' morning. Can you imagine the entire province warming up overnight? You turn that tap on, and out comes warm or cold water. Might not be a miracle right now, but it would have been last July. Right? And we're sitting there on rations. All of a sudden, you just begin, oh, this is amazing. And I can drink this water. How often do you allow yourself to offer up a prayer of gratitude to no person in general, but just to life, for the simple things that we are witnessing and experiencing on a minute-by-minute basis? It doesn't have to be vertical. It could be to no one in particular, just to life. And what does that do to you? I was listening to a Huberman podcast on gratitude recently. I don't know if you know Andrew Huberman. He has a wildly successful podcast called Huberman Labs. He's a neuroscientist at Stanford. And he dives into data on the human body, mind. It's unbelievable. But he devoted a whole podcast to the power, the human impact of gratitude like on our physicality. It's unbelievable, our physiology and brain chemistry, how it's impacted by the acts of gratitude. There's so much data now that shows a vibrant gratitude practice will enhance your physicality, your physical body, your mental, your cognitive, and your relational health. Like, there is just this massive body of research done. Scientists are going, something wild happens when gratitude is something practiced within an individual person's life. They have found that when a person experiences gratitude to varying degrees, it lights up parts of the brain, predominantly in the prefrontal cortex, that activates our, what he calls neuromodulators. This is the chemicals like serotonin and dopamine. These are the chemicals that make us feel good, that inspire us, that motivate us. When gratitude happens, when that mom reaches out and grabs onto my kid, the data suggests that our brain lights up like Christmas trees. Dopamine and serotonin flood our systems, motivating, inspiring us to beautiful things. Coincidentally, this is the same experience that happens when you show up on a Sunday and we sing together, or when we play music and we're all kind of joined together around. They say they've done data, or they've done research to show our brains fire in the very similar way. In these kind of environments, many spiritual rituals do the exact same thing as what gratitude, acts of gratitude expressed, can do. Fascinating, isn't it? He shared data that says that actual gratitude being expressed can heal past trauma. It can also inoculate you from future trauma that could happen, making you more and more resilient to future trauma that's coming ahead. This is the power of gratitude. The benefits are crazy, but not all forms of gratitude, he explains, are similar or equal. Some deliver more punch than others. According to the data, the most powerful form of gratitude is the kind that you receive. I know the Bible says it's more blessed to give than to receive. The data suggests it's actually, it's much more impacting when someone's looking at you saying thank you than you giving a thank you to someone else. This is the number one most potent form of gratitude expressed when it's coming toward you. That's not a common selling point within Christianity. I'll tell you right now, it's like, it's more blessed to receive than to give. Okay. But the data would suggest when someone's looking you in the eye and saying thank you, that is powerful. They call it the helper's high. Many volunteers, if you've given back in some different way, maybe you volunteered time and energy. I remember being called, I have a rare form of blood. I'm an AB negative. I got called in, I donate platelets and plasma. I got called in one time on behalf of a young kid who was battling leukemia. And I remember they called me out of the blue and said, could you come down? I said, yeah, sure, I'll come down. I remember sitting in the chair, and there was this one moment after being in the chair for a couple hours, they're wrapping me up, and that nurse looked me in the eyes and say, on behalf of that kid and their parents, I want to say thank you for what you did. I was flying for weeks. I'm just like, give me the call. I will do anything. I will be there. The helper's high. And we get this in multiple different ways. But that is data suggests is one of the most powerful things. Now, how do you recreate that? You go around looking for someone to thank you. No, it doesn't work that way. And it gets really ugly if the things that we do are setting out for that purpose. You know what I mean? So I just want to, this is the difficulty of even talking about this morning is we don't give to get. But around here, when we talk about the I versus they and learning how to understand that when these things come into balance, when what I want so badly gets balanced, harmonizes with those in my world and what they need. And you start entering the spiritual dance of saying, okay, I need to take care of myself, but I am going to be more mindful of these people in my world and what I can give to them. And when you start balancing this out and things start moving into we, where it's a win-win on a regular basis in your relationships, in your work environments, your neighborhoods. You're not battling for yourself, or you're not just becoming a martyr and giving everything over there and suffering yourself, but the we starts happening. And then capacity starts building to the point where you're going, I live with such abundance. In a place of feeling loved and nurtured. I have more than enough. I'm not just scraping by. I'm not just clawing and grabbing just for survival. No, I'm moving above that. Now we start entering the world of taking water, where we're saying, I want to give not because of what they're going to even say to me. I don't need a thank you. I'm not doing it for that. I am doing this because I can, and because I know somehow I was wired to be able to give back. And it makes sense of my purpose here. And when you get into that place, it is weird, but gratitude becomes a wonderful byproduct of that world. It's hard to even fight it off. It just happens. Because the art of taking water is changing the lives of people around you. So we don't do it for that reason, but it's a wonderful byproduct of it. That is the most powerful form of gratitude. What's really cool is when you realize that, you begin to recognize what crazy thing you can do for someone by simply looking them in the eye in genuine, heartfelt expressions and say thank you when you notice things they've done. When you know the currency of taking water in that way, I'm telling you, one of the most powerful things you can do is simply noticing the things people are doing and thanking them. It's a gift that could send them flying for weeks. People say, I don't know where I can take water. Why don't you just start by noticing the people in your world that you may be taking advantage of or taking for granted, not even necessarily intentional. A parent. Maybe it's a child. Maybe it's a boss, a coworker, an employee that's working for you. The second way that you can be impacted by gratitude, I found this fascinating, was simply, and this works not quite as well, but almost, is observing gratitude being expressed to someone else. This was mind-bending. The data suggests that just watching an environment, watching a woman reach over and tap her debit card on the machine and paying for someone, and that woman burying her head in her chest and saying, thank you so much. The impact of just watching it is almost similar to receiving it directly. I couldn't believe this. But then I started thinking, wait a second, I felt that. I remember it was a while back, I don't know how long ago, maybe a year or two, I shared the story of Nicholas Winton. Do you remember this story? The man responsible for saving the lives of 669 children from the horrors of the Holocaust. One day I am just scrolling mindlessly, death scrolling, whatever you call it on Facebook or Instagram, and I see this video of Nicholas Winton. Now it's years and years and years later, after doing all this beautiful work of helping these kids escape the Holocaust. He's invited to a taped broadcast or a live taping in a studio audience of a show in Britain called That's Life. There he is, he's sitting front row middle with his wife, expecting to just kind of watch the taping of the show. In the middle of the show, everything stops, and the host of the show steps right down onto the floor, right here, looking out into the crowd, and there's Nicholas Winton right there. And she says, "Nicholas Winton?" He's like, "Yeah?" She says, "I know who you are." He's like, "This is freaking me out. Why are you doing this right now?" She began sharing details of his life and what he had done. And at one point she says, "You saved the lives of many kids many, many years ago. And I just want you to know something. They're here today. If you've been impacted, if you were directly impacted by the work of Nicholas Winton, would you please stand up?" I'm watching this clip live. Or they had the cameras rolling of this clip. And he's sitting there going, "What the heck?" And all of a sudden, all these people, now grown adults, all standing up, clapping and thanking him. If you've seen there's a movie about this. I think it's called One Life, or Anthony Hopkins stars in it. I remember watching this clip, and the impact it had on me, I'm just on a Monday morning, impacted me, inspired me. Now, I'm not going to likely save kids from the Holocaust, but it got me thinking, Jarvis, are you awake? Are you alive to the opportunities that are involved in your life, that are right there for you? Had this powerful, powerful impact on me. Huberman explained, man, when you just watch, even a story, you don't have to be even right there in the line at the grocery store. You can watch something on Facebook. I watch it happen to my wife. She watches these dodo videos online. You know what I'm talking about? They're stories of animal rescues. I swear she's forwarding me like on a regular. You go, Jeff, what does she watch? She's watching someone do something incredible for an animal. And it's impacting her. That is what is going on here. It's lighting up her neurochemistry. It's changing her. And without her even realizing it, she's tying into the power of gratitude. She's watching these people do something for someone. You know what I'm talking about? Do you have a Nicholas Winton story? Do you have a story of something you've watched? Someone who's done something that you just go, "Oh my God, that's inspiring." Maybe they've worked for a cause. Maybe they've done something that's helped someone alleviate suffering in some part of the world. I know Mother Teresa was the story of many for so long. There she is in the pit of one of the most destitute places in the world, giving her life to orphans and kids that are in need. I realize Jesus' stories for almost my whole life had transformative effect on me as I think about the things that he did, the way that he fought off the judgment of others to be able to give someone a chance up, touching people that no one would touch, the lepers, the way that he did things that were just so uncommon. I remember reading these stories and going, yeah, because we need more of that. And I want to be like that. Jeez, I'm a wreck this morning. Jeez. Gratitude is a powerful thing. And when you wire it into your life, it can change you and those around you. So I guess I want to close today by just saying, do you have a gratitude practice? Do you do something intentionally on a regular to wire this into your life? How often do you just stop and just marvel at the little things in your life? Just go, that's awesome. How often do you just walk outside and just look up and go, oh, wow, look at how warm it is today. Or when you see your kid do something kind for someone, you go, oh, yes, I saw that. I'm proud of you. how often do you just notice the little miracles of life and just express gratitude in general? Do you have a story that you can go back to? Maybe that's part of your Nicholas Winton kind of experience, is thinking deeply about the story that you could revisit. Huberman says you can revisit the same story again and again and again, and it can still light you up. Sometimes it's going back and remembering a time when someone thanked you. It doesn't even have to be in real time. The one kind thing you did in your life, all you have to do is go back to it. No, I'm joking. But the time when you did something that really marked someone and they said thank you, can you remember it? Write it down. You can revisit it. You find your Nicholas Winton stories, your Dodo videos, keep them on your favorites list, and you can go back to them, and it inspires you. And maybe the last part of your gratitude practice that you could develop is setting aside a time every week or every day or every month, I don't know, where you could just be very intentional about picking someone in your life where you could look them in the eyes and you could give them a shot of serotonin and dopamine that they would never forget. Say, I want to thank you. I don't tell you enough, but I want to tell you something. I notice. This is what you've done for me. Or I've noticed what you've done for these other people. And I don't know why I've never told you this, but I want to say thank you. Part of your gratitude practice could be taking water to someone through gratitude, offering up a prayer of gratitude to someone. When we start interacting with gratitude in these ways, I'm telling you, it can become so spiritual, so life transformative. And that's my prayer for you today, is that you do that. This wraps up the prayer series. And I'm hoping that over the last number of weeks, we've encouraged you to kind of open up to a wider definition of what prayer can mean and be and do in your lives, regardless of where your theology sits. But I'm telling you something, prayer is relevant. It's a relevant piece. It can be to the spiritual journey, no matter where you are. Next week, we begin a new series called Hijack. You won't want to miss this one. I'm telling you, I don't have time to go into it, but you can go online, you can read up what's going on there. This will, you pay attention to this series, this will change your life. I believe all of these can be life-changing. I'm telling you, this coming series will get into your kitchen like few series will. You won't want to miss it. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next Sunday.